Support for WUWM podcasts comes from Potawatomi Casino Hotel Milwaukee, home to 24/7 excitement, dining, and an on-site hotel at 1721 West Canal Street. More information at potawatomi.com.
2 weeks ago, my parents' car broke down in their hometown of 200 people in Mexico.
This is Yuseli. As a DACA recipient, we are only going to use her first name here.
And if you need anything, absolutely anything, you have to travel at least 2 hours into the nearest town that has a gas station, that has...
Or an auto parts store, or a hospital. So her dad asked around town and found a motorcycle to borrow.
And he is not a motorcycle user whatsoever. And my dad had a motorcycle incident where he fell over the mountain, basically, off the cliff.
His body, as you can imagine, was pretty broken up, Yuseli says. Severe brain injury, 4 ruptured ribs, and a lung. And being in rural Mexico, he didn't even get to a hospital for 3.5 hours. Yuseli's parents came to the U.S. for her and her future when she was 5 years old, eventually making a home in Milwaukee. And even after they self-deported a few years ago back to Durango, which is a whole nother story, they've always had an incredibly special and close bond.
I'm an only child, not by choice, and I grew up like if they were my siblings. Like, I was very equal to them. My dad valued my voice. We had dinner table conversations. We talked about politics. We talked about boys, like he was there for my first heartbreak. He bought me chocolates. Like, he gave me so many tools, and back home he has all the tools. Like, his tool shed is full of anything that anybody could possibly need. And when, like, the water tower hoses break in the town, my dad will be the ones to go repair them. And it's kind of a weird way to see that my town misses him, because 2 days ago a water hose broke, and we have a WhatsApp Asuntos de Agua group chat in our pueblo, and I got added to it because I'm nosy. And one of my uncles uploaded a video to the WhatsApp asking if people had a spare hose, knowing, right, the entire community, all 60 phone numbers know that my dad has rolls and rolls of spare hoses. But nobody will go into his workshop without him.
One of the first things Yuseli did when she found out about the accident was apply for emergency advance parole. This is a way for DACA recipients to legally leave and re-enter the U.S. The problem was that even that system is so backlogged with cases that she was told it would be a 4-month wait to even hear back if she was approved. And that is 4 months that her dad does not have. She said she recently traveled back to Mexico in January of this year with regular advance parole, which not even that went smoothly. On her way home, she says she was held and questioned for over 2 hours by federal agents. And now that ICE agents are in some airports, she feels even more anxiety over the potential of flying.
You know, that experience that happened to me in January really shaped how I would consider traveling now. And it's a risk that we all have to take, right? My parents took a risk when they brought me here at 5 years old, and now I have to make the risk of going back and potentially saying goodbye to my dad, or saying goodbye to my dad through a screen, but being safe from any sort of repercussion that might happen at an airport. And every day that my dad lays in the ICU is like, I think, just a ticking clock for me to be able to travel. And although I did apply for emergency advance parole, like I said, like, the wait time is so long that anything could happen to his health, whereas anything could happen here in the States that could worsen travel for people.
If it did come down to saying goodbye through a screen or taking that risk to see him, what would you do today?
I would take the risk, because my parents did everything to take a risk to bring me here. And I know that my community has my back. I saw it through the amount of support that I received financially to support me. And that just showed that if we are not taking risks and we are continuing to go into shadows, we are doing exactly what this administration wants us to do, we are buying into the fear that we are not enough or that we are not worthy, and just recognizing the privilege, right? Because I still see that as a privilege that I could still leave. It's something that I'm willing to do.
This is Status Pending. I'm your host, Jimmy Gutierrez. Yuseli's story is not uncommon. Family members who are sick, maybe they're dying, and maybe they're doing it in a different country. What's different is now ICE agents, whose primary work is immigration enforcement, are patrolling some U.S. airports. This all happened because a partial government shutdown meant TSA workers were not getting paid, leading to staffing shortages and long lines at airports. And even though Trump has signed an executive order to pay TSA agents, getting them back to work, we know that over 500 of them have left the job over that time. So, what should people with vulnerable statuses know about air travel? And what should all of us know about what to expect in our airports?
My heart goes out to her and her family, because talk about a moment where all of us can identify that if we have a loved one and we want to be near them in their hour of need.
This is attorney Melissa Soborowski. She's the managing attorney at Soborowski Immigration Law in Milwaukee.
To create an environment where someone who is here lawfully and they don't feel safe being able to do that, that's incredibly un-American and just frankly depressing to know that we're even where we're at right now.
What is ICE doing at airports? What job are they filling, and what job are they even capable of filling at our airports?
So everything that I have read and heard explains that they're filling in for the need with TSA currently calling off or quitting altogether because of the government shutdown. As far as what need they're actually fulfilling, they're supposed to be fulfilling assistance to TSA, but a lot of TSA folks are saying that that's not even the case, that they're not properly trained to conduct the searches and assistance that is needed.
And at the end of the day, there's still, as you've pointed out, immigration enforcement, which we've seen as early as the first day in some international airports. There was the viral video of when ICE targeted and detained the mother in front of her 9-year-old daughter in San Francisco. I'm curious what you're hearing from clients with vulnerable statuses, and kind of how are you guiding them through potentially having to travel through some of these airports?
Well, let me tell you about a call I just got off of. A woman, a U.S. citizen, she married a gentleman from Mexico, and he just recently, in the last 6 months, got his residency. They want to travel to Florida in order to see his son graduate from the Navy. So here is her son, a young man that her husband helped raise. And he is in the military, ready to serve for our country. And my client, the resident, is afraid to travel. So I did advise him that I think he is safe in doing so, but it breaks my heart that he just wants to see his stepson that he raised graduate from the Naval Academy, and the fact that ICE is present in these airports is giving him any kind of reservation. To me, that seems sad. And to be frank, we're advising folks not to take that risk at all if they're undocumented, if they have a pending case, if they're out of status, if they have an open or prior removal order or are in removal proceedings, or if they have any kind of concerning criminal history or open criminal issue. So we're just categorically telling folks that that is not a risk worth taking.
If folks have no other choice, let's say the person we heard from in the beginning of this episode it's maybe life or death, or there's just a decision they're not willing to take to not travel, what would you say to someone in that situation?
We're telling them to carry with them the documents that show that they are in status, whether they're a legal permanent resident, a U.S. citizen, or if they have some sort of temporary protection. So making sure that they have those documents in order and a valid passport from their home country. We're also reminding folks to acknowledge what their rights are, know their rights as far as what they would be in any other public space. You still have the same rights to remain silent, to ask to speak to an attorney if you fear that that encounter might result to something a little bit more.
When you travel to, especially in airports, it feels like all of your information is exposed. I'm thinking biometrics, our most personal documentation, pretty much everything and anything that we can think of. So Besides knowing your rights, are there other things that people can do to risk the exposure that they're already kind of opting into with travel, regardless of status?
I traveled recently, and I was careful about leaving my laptop and my personal phone at home, just because I didn't want to run the risk of exposing myself or my clients to any unnecessary searches. I also used a phone in which I removed the facial recognition, because it has been noted at times that ICE and other law enforcement agents will literally hold it up to your face to unlock your phone. And I don't think that risk is worth taking.
You know, something else that we've seen with ICE in these spaces is people are already filming them because they are without face masks. So they are exposed in these areas. What should folks know about photography and video when it comes to airports and documentation at airports?
I would highlight that folks should do what they feel comfortable with, because it is their constitutional right to film or record law enforcement. However, that right extends to public spaces alone. And I would say that airports can kind of be gray areas or gray zones in that they're both public, but some parts of them are also private or protected by national security concerns. So they should be careful to record, look to see if there are signs, and then if advised to stop filming if they're in one of those zones, they probably should, just to keep themselves safe.
Just even thinking of how difficult and tricky this could all be going forward, is you were already dealing with and trying to instruct clients on the challenges with traveling at this time with who had advanced parole or who were looking to get advanced parole. So what are some of the other challenges that you're seeing from folks with vulnerable statuses or whatever the case may be that are trying to travel, that have been looking forward to traveling for a long time? What kind of challenges have you been kind of dealing with over the past year and a half?
Some of the challenges are folks that are completing a process where they have to leave the United States to conduct an interview at a U.S. consulate abroad, because that's part of the process of them getting their residency. And those folks are afraid that they're going to somehow be swept up in this really aggressive movement. And then their whole process that they have put themselves on, that process is going to get derailed, and then they'll be placed in detention, which is mind-boggling because they're literally doing it the right way, as folks sometimes say. Now they're afraid that won't actually be able to happen.
Yeah, it feels like the goalposts are always kind of moving. And it feels kind of like that's been under this expansion of ICE power with the new Trump administration, or the current Trump administration. Is we've seen that in a couple ways, right? We've seen less oversight in their operations, them detaining legal residents, not having to present identification. This list goes on. Also, we've talked about that huge increase in funding where they're completely inoculated from the shutdown. So how are you talking with clients about this agency whose powers are seemingly unchecked?
It's hard. Every day I wake up and I read the news, whether I want to have to or not, because I owe that to my clients. And then I try to guide them through something that is constantly changing and evolving, and in ways that often feel counterintuitive, unconstitutional, and quite frankly, un-American. And I advise my clients every day to obtain their records, carry with them their documents that they have, create Plan A, Plan B, Plan C for all types of contingencies, and just remain in communication with us. I think that's the best we can do these days.
That was Melissa Sobrowski, an immigration lawyer in Milwaukee. I'm Jimmy Gutierrez. Status Pending is produced by WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR, part of the NPR network. Keep listening to Status Pending for more stories about immigration in Wisconsin.